Hello guys, so I found this survey on my Twitter feed just as an advertisement, so I thought it'd be fun to go through. Alright, let's try with the first one here. Eligible voters should not be forced to vote. Strongly agree. I'm against forcing people to vote. It only covers up, failings you have in your current representation, when it shows that a lot of people are not interested in politics. There's not really any benefit to having uninformed people vote. If people are interested, they have the ability to currently go out and vote, so I don't see why we need to force people into it. All right, 220. A party that wins the most seats in an election should still have to compromise with other parties, even if it means reconsidering some of its policies. I'm gonna go strongly agree here, just because even though I do think that you should be able to have the laws passed, I do like having some sluggishness in government because most things the governments do, I am opposed to. So even if it slows down the guys I like from fixing it, I think overall it would benefit me more if it is a slower program in general. All right, so 3. Governments should have to negotiate their policy decisions with other parties in Parliament, even if it is less clear who is accountable for the resulting policy. Have to negotiate their policy decisions with other parties in Parliament. I'm going to strongly disagree here. I like having the back and forth and seeing that on TV between parties, but when it comes down to what your party has to have as its final policy, that can be done. You can have a common debate about that. You can have one that if you're trying to get their votes, you talk about it and you change it. But if you don't need their votes, I don't understand some of the reasons why it would be able to push that. All right, listen to the next one. 4. Members of Parliament should always act in the interest of their constituents, even if it means going against their own party. I'm going to strongly disagree here just because you made promises when you ran, and to say, oh, well, the people in my area, want this or they want that, to go against the principles of which you were voted in for, of which you represented when you said, hey, vote for me, I represent these ideals. I think that should be a priority, and that, there's a lot of people who did not vote for you in your area, but, you need to focus on promoting the values that you put forth that got you elected. All right, so 520, the voting age for federal elections should be lowered. Strongly disagree with that. All right, is it better for several parties to have to govern together than for one party to make all the decisions in government, even if it takes longer for government to get things done? It's better for several parties to govern together. I won't say that that's better. I see it. I feel like there can be some damage control by working together, but I don't think that it produces a better result per se. So I'm gonna go. Strongly agree. All right, next one. 7 of 20. There should be greater diversity of views in Parliament. Yeah, strongly agree. Eligible voters who do not vote in elections should be fined. Strongly disagree. You don't punish people for not being involved in the political process. We're all not meant for it. Ensuring that more individuals are elected from groups that are currently underrepresented in Parliament should be a top priority. Like ideological groups, because so far, you vote for the guy you like, and then that person's, your representation. So we're already 100% represented, unless you're talking about skin color and gender, which, that's, anyone who has a certain skin color or has a certain gender can also currently vote for a person who holds the beliefs that they hold dear to them and they think are good to have in government. So I don't really see the need for having a gender quota or a skin color quota in government. So I'm going to go with strongly disagree here. Members of Parliament should reflect the diversity of Canadian society, even if it means putting in place special measures to increase the representation of certain groups. There's a lot of different societal values and a lot of different areas that believe completely different things. Which is, why we have, members of Parliament. We have all the areas that are cut up into their own districts because they represent different cultures and different views within those areas. So we already have a bit of that already. Should reflect diversity of Canadian society, if it means putting in place special measures to increase the representation of certain groups. Like we currently already have this. I think that there is ways to promote this, but none that I can agree with that, doesn't take away from other things I value when we're considering what type of election system to have. So I'm gonna go. Someone disagree with this. Online voting in federal elections would increase voter participation. I'm gonna neutral that. It's a thing about laziness, right? It's not about who has the ability to make it out to vote, because they go through great lengths to make sure everyone can currently go out and vote. And there's a huge risk when you introduce internet voting into the situation, which is a huge can of worms that really don't need to be open. And it might get a few people who are kind of more a bit more lazy in order to vote, but you should be able to put in the amount of effort it is to cast a vote early or to cast a vote on election day. So I don't really see it being as a necessity. All right, voters should be able to express multiple preferences on the ballot, even if this means that it takes longer to count the ballots and announce the election results. I'm going to say I agree. It should always be clear which party is accountable for decisions made by government, even if this means that decisions are only made by one party. So this is talking about like if multiple parties come together to rewrite some legislation so that it passes easier. I mean, everyone still puts their stamp of approval on it or not, when they vote for it. So, I mean, to me, that's strong accountability right there. I'm going to go strongly disagree. All right. 14. Canadians should have the option to cast their vote online in federal elections, even if it is less secure. We strongly disagree. Members of Parliament should always support the position of their party, even if it means going against the wishes of their constituents. I'm going to say, strongly agree. Like, if your party isn't representing, the views of your people, you talk to your party about it and get it to change. A lot of people vote for party, and the party has a consistent message. And, there's some value in that. That's why people form parties in the first place. You should negotiate there, but yeah, I'll just leave it at that and move on. Canadians should have the option to cast their ballot online in federal elections, even if this increases the cost of elections. Strongly disagree. Online is a really big can of worms, and we don't need it. We don't need to call into question the legitimacy of our elections. The day of a federal election should be a statutory holiday. I'm going to go strongly disagree here. My current experience is that everyone has the ability to cast a vote currently, that there isn't too many problems with it. You can cast vote early if you know you're going to be busy that day. You can get to vote. There's already laws saying that your employer has to have a certain amount of hours off on election day given to you, so that you're able to get to vote and whatnot. If there was a bit of an epidemic of people not being able to get to the ballot box, I could understand this as a reason for that. But to just try to put more of an emphasis on election day, I don't think that this is needed. There should be parties in Parliament that represent the views of all Canadians, even if some are radical or extreme. I strongly agree. I'm a radical and I'm an extremist, so why not have my views represented there? There should be a limit to the length of federal election campaign periods. Now, this is kind of misleading because, the federal election campaign period, that's a period where there's a lot of limitations on you. You can campaign as hard as you want before then. So it's kind of ironic. This is kind of asking for a limit on a limit. I don't know if a lot of people will understand that. There should be a limit on the length of federal election campaign periods. I guess strongly disagree would mean that, that you're for limits. I'm going to go strongly agree. Because, yeah. All right, so last question. A ballot should be easy to understand, even if it means voters have fewer options to express their preference. I do believe that, a ballot should be easy to understand. Like, I know when I was, circling in, the name on the ballot and putting it in the box, that I was very, very careful and looking over the answer, just making sure like I have 100% right, because I was just really focused in that moment, making sure that, I'm getting this, I got it the correct way. And even after I walked away, I'm like, I have those second thoughts like, okay, did I do it right? Because it is one of those type of situations. So I think having it simple really does help in those type of situations. I think what they mean by this is, if we try different type of voting systems, which I don't agree with first past the post. I think there's a lot of systems that make it better. I don't think there's any system that could fix democracy. But I don't see why you can't go with a different type of way. So even if it means voters have fewer options to express preference. I'm going to strongly agree with this one. All right, so there's more questions now. There's is one of 10, so we're on the second part out of 4 parts in the survey. All right, so which would you prefer? A government where one party governs and can make decisions on its own, or a government where several parties have to collectively agree before a decision is made? I'm gonna go several parties agree just because that slows down the process, and most things that they want to pass are things that that I don't like. So it'd be better for me if the system was a bit slower, even if my side was slowed in the process. Overall, I would benefit. One party governs and is solely accountable for policy outcomes, or several parties must cooperate to govern and they should share accountability for policy outcomes. I mean, like if you vote for something, you have accountability for it. So I don't understand, where this idea that there isn't currently accountability. So I'm going to do multiple party ones and move on. Which best describes your views? Ballots should be as simple as possible so that everyone understands how to vote, or ballots should allow everybody to express their preferences in detail. Simplicity is key. You can mix it up a bit. You can have different voting systems, but you got to try to make it simple. All right. Members of parliament that do what their party promised, even if it means going against their constituents' want, or members of parliament that do what their constituents want, even if it means going against what their party promised. Party promises are a huge thing, and that kind of, to me, has precedent. That, you do what you promised for the people who voted for you, over the people who lost, but you happen to represent. All right, so no further action needs to be taken to ensure that those elected to Parliament better reflect the diversity of the population they represent, or future action needs to be taken to ensure that those elected to Parliament better reflect the diversity of the population they represent. Making sure that those in Parliament better reflect the diversity. I mean, like, unless you're talking about redrawing electoral lines, I don't understand how this will help. Putting, a black guy to represent, a black neighborhood doesn't really change anything. People still vote for who they think is best, who they think has the best policies. So, putting it for just gender or skin color doesn't make sense to me. They can already vote based on the ideas they prefer. So I'm going to say no further action. All right, Canadians should have the option to cast their ballot online in federal elections, even if the security or privacy of online voting cannot be guaranteed. Yeah, that's going to be good for our society. When you say, well, I mean, it's mostly accurate. Or Canadians should continue to vote using paper ballots at a polling station, even if it is less accessible for some voters. How is voting inaccessible? Like right now, I don't think anyone has an issue with voting. Anyone is capable of voting within Canada. It's, even if you're like tied to a hospital bed, I think you can, write in and send in a letter and you can vote. You don't have to have electronic voting. There's no one who's left out of voting currently. Voting in federal elections is an obligation, or voting in federal elections is a choice. A choice, obviously. Having many small parties in Parliament representing many different views, or having a few big parties that try to appeal to the broad range of people. I prefer, many small parties. I understand why it clusters into a few big parties. I guess my preference is small. If we can get away that can be represented, that'd be cool. Members of Parliament that spend more time in their constituency working with constituents, or members of Parliament that spend more time in Parliament Hill working on issues that matter to the constituents. I mean, it's just like personal preference. I mean, like if the people who are voting for you, want you to be in Parliament Hill, they want you to be in Parliament Hill. It doesn't matter to me this too much. You have to do some advertising, within your own district. You have to be involved, or people aren't going to be voting for you next time. Which would you prefer? Members of Parliament that always support policies that they think are best for their constituents, even if their constituents disagree, or members of Parliament that always support policies their constituents want, even if the MPs themselves personally disagree? I mean, like, this is kind of like a do-over, right? Like, you get elected, most people voted for you in your area, and you're supposed to represent them and their views, and bring that to government, right? So then there's the fraction of people who did not vote for you, did not vote for your party. You know, do you have a right? Do you have a duty to represent those people? Well, it's sad, but it's not the way that it works, because you know, if you did that, you know, then people of other parties wouldn't, and then you'd just be falling behind, because you'd be serving the people who are the opposite of your own goals. Yeah, I just don't understand, well, where this logic comes in. So MPs do what they feel is best. You know, you got to move forward on your goals, on the reason why people voted for you, to put your own priorities first. All right, so we're at the end of the interesting part of it. This part is just, you know, like, you know, what's important to you, and then after this, I think it just goes your personal information. So thanks for joining me for this, guys. If you'd like more, just tell me in the comments below. Give me a like if you'd like, and I'll see you guys next time.